So there's some interesting news over the weekend. Joe Biden told of donors at a virtual fundraiser. Apparently he's been having some fundraising problems, so he's been doing that he has essentially started moving forward with picking his vice president and cabinet picks. But what was more interesting there was that he not only said that he was going forward, but that he had actually called Bernie Sanders and basically said, hey, man, like, no offense, but I'm going to go ahead with this. And that Bernie, I mean, he didn't protest, but he basically acquiesced and said, okay, do whatever you need to do. So it's an interesting, I guess, an admission in terms of the Bernie Sanders-Joe Biden relationship that Biden, he was saying, my good friend Bernie, he continues to say that. I think Bernie not really having any antipathy towards Biden, at least publicly.
Yeah.
And Biden really going forward and saying, I'm going to start vetting my VPs. He says in the middle of the month, he's going to unveil a committee to pick his vice presidential pick, probably to be exposed at the convention or maybe, leaked shortly before. And also saying that he called President Obama so that he would have some input rather than now that the convention is afterwards, but that sometime in the middle of the month, they're going to be overseeing a VP process, cabinet selection process, that he's already beginning to act like the presumptive Democratic nominee. Just an interesting little tidbit there.
Yeah.
From what he told his fundraisers.
It is interesting. And we know from some of the reporting on the Sanders campaign that part of the reason he had such a hard time going after Joe, at the beginning, in the middle, at the end, when it was clear, like, you got to do something to slow this guy's momentum or it's going to be all over, was because Joe was one of the people in the Senate who had been nice to him. I mean, just literally that, right? He'd been nice to him, and that's a very human thing. But you can see Joe's smart to do this right now, to reach out to Bernie, to continue to call him my friend, to sort of, extend at least the rhetorical olive branch at this point, because you see that does, in fact, influence Bernie's behavior in terms of how he make a decision about when and how to drop out. We also, as I talked about my radar, new reporting from the Washington Post that several of Bernie's top advisors, in my view, insanely, but have been pushing him to drop out. Faz Shakir, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, longtime advisor Jeff Weaver in particular, and the reporting said that Weaver was making the case that he would have more leverage now, Bernie would have more leverage now if he were to get out for long run down the road. That to me is completely nonsensical, because no one is, yes, Joe's being nice to you now and he's giving you a heads up and he's trying to, smooth the waters, et cetera, but if you think that they're going to give you anything because you do what they ask you to do or because you play nice, it's not going to work.
Yeah, they'll pat you on the head and be like, thank you, Bernie.
Thank you, Bernie. And then when Joe loses, they'll turn around and say, it's all your fault.
It's all your fault. Our people didn't turn out and all of this. Biden is fun. This is the one thing that Bernie is terrible at and Biden is good at. Calling in, being like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to have to go ahead with this. It's one of those things where he's like, he'll stab you in the front, but he'll smile while doing it. And that's something that Sanders always struggled with. He, never called Jim Clyburn to try to get him to not endorse. Apparently, I was reading some of the backstory. While Elizabeth Warren was calling AOC every day, courting her, trying to get her endorsement, they could barely get Bernie to call her in order to be like, hey, it'd be great if you could endorse me. He's just not somebody who engages in that type of power politics, And I think it's really coming down to hurt him, because Biden is willing to do that, continues to stroke him, to be like, hey, you're my friend, all this. And apparently Jane and Bernie Sanders have a lot of personal affection for Joe Biden over the many years in the U.S. Senate. And it's all kind of coming to the point where Bernie does not look like he's in a powerful position here. And, this is what Biden said. He said, he's a friend. I don't want him to think I'm being presumptuous, but you have to start deciding who you're going to have background checks on, blah, blah, blah. And I just love that. He's like, I'm being courteous to him. But when the shoe was on the other foot, there was no courtesy about the delegate count, about contested convention, about trying to steal a nomination. They were ready for that. They were 100% ready to fight a bloodthirsty fight. And yet, whenever the shoe's on the other foot, Bernie's not willing to do the same thing. And this is what happens.
No, and as we've discussed before, it always reminds me of that interview he gave to the New York Times editorial board, where he's like, I'm not going to call you on your birthday. I don't tolerate bullshit particularly well. Yeah. And it was a very actually revealing moment, because it's true. He does not want to do the typical political thing, calling people up and being your buddy, like the classic sort of Bill Clinton way of doing politics, the glad handing, where you call people and you smooth the waters and you make the diplomatic approach. And even if they want to endorse you, you're still going to be their buddy, but you're going to keep him out of the race. All that's he's not going to do that. And that's fine if you're willing to go hard. Right? If you're willing to be that bomb thrower, you're willing to actually live up to the caricature of the way people portray you in this town as being this like mean old angry dude who's just against the world. Like if you're actually willing to be that person, that approach can work. But you can't not do the political work, but then still try to have one foot inside the political game. It was very clear with Elizabeth Warren that she was trying to do both, and it completely failed her to try to claim the rhetoric of a movement and anti-establishment while being the player in the game. With Bernie, it was sort of less obvious because he maintained the independent label. He's willing to say he's an existential threat to the Democratic Party. He was willing to go harder on some of those things. But at the end of the day, when it came down to these personal relationships, he wasn't able to navigate that in a way that was effective for gaining power.
It reminds me actually of kind of Obama. Obama, this was one of the main knocks on him, is that he was not
he hated
willing.
doing politics.
He would refuse. He was like, I'm not going to do these lunches or these dinners. I'm not going to give you a free ride on Air Force One. I'm not going to do any of that stuff for you. And it bit him. He was not able to move stuff through the Senate and through legislation because he, again, was kind of one of those people who he wasn't willing to go all out whenever it came to his movement, the organizing. I mean, he built this huge organization that basically turned his administration over to the same corporatists who ran the party for 20, 30 years, and then at the same time was not willing to engage in the power politics of D.C., and that fell flat on his face. I mean, ultimately passed one thing through the Congress, and that was it for the next 8 years.
He was always like a step removed, like an observer of what was happening down here, but never himself, getting his hands dirty and actually, because it's rough and tumble, right? And you do come out looking, not looking as pure or, above the fray as maybe you want to. And he was never willing to grapple with that. Bernie, it's a little bit of a different frame, but ultimately the result is similar because he's not willing to weaponize his movement. And he doesn't want to engage in that sort of political gamesmanship, and so you're left with where he is right now.
You're left with Joe. And by the way, we have a little Joe update. This isn't that cringeworthy. It's kind of funny.
And we're happy to see all of you.
Am I supposed to say something now?
Yeah, you can say something.
Well, hi everybody. It's great to see you all. You have really great podcasts. All the families.
So Joe had a little live stream yesterday. I love whenever you can see how transparently how they're trying to appeal to young people. So he and his wife did a live stream town hall with 3 family YouTubers.
Okay.
And so he did this thing. And so anyway, just take a look and you'll catch the remark that I found offensive at the end.
And, we're happy to see all of you.
Am I supposed to say something now?
Yeah, you can say something.
Well, hi everybody. It's great to see you all. You have really great podcasts. All the families.
Great podcast.
Great podcast.
Not YouTube. I know it's petty. I did find that. Find that funny, and I was more just wanted to play it because I wanted to make sure. I think it's funny because you have to go in and look into the minds of these like boomer campaign operatives who are like, how do we appeal to younger people? And they're like, well, what about they really like YouTube?
Right.
And so they like go out and they find these like 3 family YouTubers to weirdly participate in this Joe live stream town hall. And he's like, I like your podcast. It's like, first of all, just don't even.
Right.
So you obviously don't watch it. You don't know who these people are. I don't think Joe even knows what the YouTubers are. Which is
fine. But Joe pretend.
He's like 70s, whatever.
Yeah. It reminds me, he did that happy hour for young people, live stream, which I think like 2,000 people attended. Probably 80% of them were reporters.
Yeah.
But I think he dropped the word like millennial or Generation Z like 30 times in the opening paragraph. Yeah. Because if you just say the word millennial, which by the way, I'm a millennial and I ain't that young at this point. But if you just say the word millennial a lot, then you'll appeal to young people. That's what I've always found, Saagar.
Yes, that's exactly how you do it. Be like, I'm a millennial, and people are like, yes, I'm with you.
Which is why Pete Buttigieg did so well with young people in this campaign.
I always love it when people say that.
He didn't.
Okay.
Tomorrow on Rising, we're going to dive into public opinion with Gallup's editor-in-chief, Mohammed Yunus.
And the nation's D.C. correspondent, Ken Klippenstein. He'll describe how the military knew a coronavirus-like pandemic was coming as early as 2017. As always, please like, share, and subscribe so you guys don't miss anything. Hit that subscribe button. We will see you guys tomorrow.
Have a good one, guys.